I don't want to waste your time, so there won't be an intro. Broadly speaking, there are two ways of defending blue and sunrise on Coastline. You can either extend your defense horizontally into kitchen, lobby, server and office, or you can extend vertically into hookah, cocktail and billiard. On a Pro League level, both are playable, but my goal here is to take bits and pieces from the setups that Pro League teams are using, to then kind of adapt them a little bit and build our own strategy that can be used in ranked or T3 competition. And in that sort of context, I think extending horizontally fits a bit better, and it's also easier to play. Alright, so the plan is to extend our defense over the entire ground floor. But before we do that, we have to make sure that the site is properly reinforced, so we don't just get overrun. We are going to reinforce all 4 walls in Sunrise towards Gym, the reason for which will become obvious in a minute, and then we have 2 walls in Sunrise couches towards Blue Bar. On this side, Couch is definitely the strongest spot, because it allows us to contest both Sunrise and Blue Bar plans pretty easily. That's also the reason why we reinforce the wall towards Kitchen Hallway. Our 8th wall will be placed towards Office, and again you'll see why we only reinforce the left side in a bit. Then there is 1 more wall on the ground floor in Kitchen towards Service, because again, the idea here is to extend, and it's kind of difficult to play inside Kitchen with no reinforcements at all. And because we're not planning on contesting anything on the top floor, we're going to use our last reinforcement on Hookah Hedge. Pretty obvious when considering how important the couch position is. Alright, site is secured, so let's talk about how exactly we're going to hold the rest of the ground floor. In my opinion, the best way to do it is to have 1 playing in Office, in that case it's Legion, then 1 in Security, where Jaeger is playing right now, and then 1 in Kitchen, where Mozzie is playing right now. But don't pay too much attention to the operator lineup, because we're going to play a slightly different one. The key here is the positions they are playing in, because those give you a lot of possibilities to play crossfires. If attackers are pushing Office, we have Smoke holding the right side of the push, we have Legion inside Office to hold an angle, and we have Jaeger in Security, who can also help if he walks up a bit. If attackers are pushing Lobby, Mozzie and Jaeger can play together from Security and Bathroom, and I guess Maestro could also help from Sunrise. The attackers are pushing Service, Mozzie can play behind a reinforcement in Kitchen, and he can not only get support from one of the Sunrise players, but if you open feed holes in Beer to Lobby, then you can also have Jaeger participating from Security. The attackers are pushing Kitchen Window, we again have Mozzie behind the reinforcement, and one of the Sunrise players being able to peek off a call. So, as you can see, no matter where the attackers could be coming from, you should be able to get at least some kind of support from at least one of your teammates. But now we also need a way for those that are playing offside to influence the actual side. And I'm sure you've already noticed, but the main way to do that is to open these large holes in Blue Bar to Courtyard. We're not playing anyone inside Blue Bar anyways, and more importantly, this gives Mozzie and Jaeger a way to contribute something even though they're kind of far away from the actual bomb site. You might have noticed how in all the rounds I showed so far, and also in the one you're watching right now, there's quite a lot of variation in terms of operator lineup. And that's to be expected. This is a pretty default strategy, and of course every team kind of developed their own spin on it. The variant that I like the most is Smoke, Jaeger, Valk, Mute and Wamai. But to make full use of that lineup, we're going to play it in a bit of a special way. We're going to place a shield in that corner and then stack all of our ADS and Wamai magnets around that shield. The idea here is basically to create a bunker-like area that drains the attackers of all their utility, hoping that they then don't have the resources left to set up a proper plant. Because the thing is, Wamai is not going to win around that corner, right? He will eventually die. He just needs to make it worth it. But why are we setting up our bunker in that corner? We could just run Wamai and Jaeger and play the default positions behind Counter and Couch and make those our bunkers. Well, the reason that doesn't work has to do with how we're extending horizontally instead of vertically. With this strat, we have nothing set up to contest hookah and billiard. And this is basically an invitation that says, please play a vertical take and bug open the floor above us. And that is 100% what's going to happen against coordinated teams. And then it's really nice to be able to play in a position that has no holes above it. And that's the reason we are playing in that corner. It wastes a lot of time and utility, and against vertical takes, it's pretty much the only playable spot in Sunrise. On the topic of vertical takes, there is actually something that we can do to counter them even though we're not initially contesting the top floor, and these holes make it possible. Because suddenly, Sledge or Buck are exposed to a number of extra angles, and then the idea is to late flank up white stairs and kind of retake hookah and billiard from afar. Admittedly, that's probably a pro league specific strat and it's a bit overkill for ranked, but if you feel like your opponents are really strong at playing vertically, that's a way to throw them off their game. Okay, so now I've covered everything related to the setup. Let's quickly recap it and make sure that everyone knows what he's supposed to be doing. We are playing Wamai Shield, Smoke Barbed Wire, Jaeger Barbed Wire, Valk C4 and Mute C4. Wamai is reinforcing 2 gym walls, places his shield, and then throws magnets around it. Jaeger is reinforcing the other 2 gym walls, places a barbed wire below gym window, and also stacks all of his ADS to protect the shield. Then he makes his way over to security and drops his second barbed wire in office. Valk has a pretty short setup again. She reinforces one of the blue 2 office walls and the hatch and hookah, and then she's free to use her Valk cams wherever she wants basically. I like having at least one in office and one in gym, and I guess courtyard or kitchen are good spots for the third one. She just needs to make sure that she's inside office when the action phase begins, because typically she'll be cut off pretty early into the round. Mute reinforces a couch wall, places a few mute jammers in sunrise, opens the wall in blue bar to courtyard, and then makes his way over to kitchen to reinforce the kitchen wall. You are 100% going to run out of time here, so make sure that at least the wall is reinforced when the action phase begins. The feed holes in beer and the rotation hole towards kitchen hallway can be made in a quiet moment during the round. Last up is Smoke, who reinforces 2 couch walls, opens the rotation hole in couch to blue, places barbed wire below sunrise window and on cool vibes, and then makes his way up to shred the hookah and cocktail walls. If you decide to play without these holes, you can have Smoke make all the holes that Mute made before, and then you have the option of replacing Mute with a different C4 operator, like Mozzie for example. Alright, so that is the basic setup. Technically that's all you need, but playing this strat correctly is actually kind of difficult, so I want to go over a few typical scenarios and give you some hints on what you should watch out for. Let's start with vertical takes, because that's probably the strongest way of attacking the site, right? When you see that the defenders are not holding anything on the top floor, it's just natural to take hookah control, open the floor above the site, and then plant in default corner. In the early game, there's not too much you can do against that, but one thing that is actually pretty good is that Wamai can start playing on cool vibes and Jaeger can start playing on white stairs, and you can at least shoot a drone before falling back. Doesn't seem like much, but it can actually be pretty impactful. Other than that, you just sit still, check cams, and wait for the attackers to take control of hookah, because that's when it starts to get interesting. At this point in time, you should have Wamai in the corner behind his shield, and Smoke either in couch or behind counter. And as Smoke, what's important here is to not fight too much. As long as there is still a safe spot, go ahead and play in there, but don't be afraid to just leave and rotate either into the area right below cool vibes or into blue bar. As you can see here, DZ has vacated the default spots in sunrise, and instead they're playing close in the corner and in blue bar. Now it's basically all about how long Wamai can hold out for, and here it really is about survival and not about getting kills. As long as the shield is intact, you really don't want to be peeking a lot. It's fine to pre-fire a gym window from time to time to gain a bit of respect, but don't overdo it. You are going to die eventually, but you have to make it worth it in terms of time and utility. To do that effectively, you really have to think about the way you're using his ability, and something that is crucial, but often overlooked, is that you always need one disc in your pocket, and you're going to save that until you are about to lose the last ADS charge, because the next piece of utility flying in after that will be a nade, and you're going to catch that because the attackers are not going to throw the nade right after the flashbangs. There will be a delay, and so your magnet will activate in time and save you. Alright, now I can already hear you asking, what about Thatcher though? Short answer, unlucky. Long answer, it's going to be alright, as long as you space out the ADS properly. Later on, when your shield is finally gone, that's when you can be a bit more aggressive and try to go 1-for-1. Okay, so that was a lot about how Wamai is supposed to play. What about the rest of the team? Because they don't need to sit around waiting for him to die. If Smoke fell back towards kitchen, he can play here, holding a pixel without being exposed to cool vibes. And if he fell back into blue, he can prone here and hold a pixel on gym door. Valkyrie in office can basically play the exact same angle by using bullet holes in the unreinforced office wall. And of course, you also always have the option of running out, and that's really strong here. Valk can run out of office door to kill a sunrise window player, and Mute or Jaeger can run out of service to kill people outside gym. But during all of that, make sure to not neglect your flank. Always have someone keep an eye on lobby and courtyard. And for the last part, what do you do after Wamai died? Then, it's all about denying the plant in the default corner, which is the one that Wamai was playing in. Ideally, you should still have some smokes left, so you can use those. But regardless of that, the best piece of advice that I can give you is to just run back into couch and counter. Sounds kinda stupid, because now there are holes above it, but years of experience have taught me that attackers just don't check these holes in the ultra late game. And even if they did, with Smoke retaking counter and Valk retaking couches, one of them is going to survive, and that makes it possible to deny the plant. Some of the time you can also get kind of lucky by playing the long range angles in kitchen and kitchen hallway. In that spot, people aren't always planting correctly, and you might be able to catch a glimpse of them from far away. Naturally, there are also going to be some unexpected developments, but the ones I've talked about here are fairly predictable, I'd say. But being predictable is not something that I can say about the other ways of attacking this site. I don't think there really is a textbook way of how to play a horizontal take, for example. As a defender, the most important thing to deal with those is to communicate effectively. As long as you know where the attackers are trying to push from, you can rotate and set up the crossfires that I've talked about earlier. Sometimes you will have the option of falling back, but I'm not too much of a fan of that. I think as long as you have some support, you should probably try to fight, because otherwise you're going to run out of playable space. Last, somewhat common way of attacking that I want to touch on is everything that has to do with an office take. If the attackers are trying to plant in blue bar, your number one priority as a defender is to play around courtyard. You want at least one player in lobby, and then maybe another one in kitchen hallway. As long as you have control of that, it should be possible to hold down the site. Just be aware that there is a way to plant in blue bar without being exposed to courtyard. With our strat, it's blocked by the reinforced wall, but if they breach it, you need to either smoke or C4 that plant. Alright, that should pretty much cover every common situation that you could find yourself in. But of course, there's always something going to happen that you weren't prepared for. And again, I actually think that playing this strat effectively is kind of difficult. Against horizontal takes, for example, it's not at all easy to play the crossfires correctly, so don't think you can master the strat by just playing it once. But, in my opinion, Blue Sunrise is a lot better than both Theater and Hookah, so if you put the time in, you're definitely going to be rewarded at the end. In the description, you can find a link to the final slides, so you can just send them to your teammates and they should be able to see which walls they need to reinforce and where they should be playing. Okay, that's it for the video. I hope I was able to give you a better understanding of this bomb site. I hope you learned something new, and thanks for watching.